just going to jump right into looping. And, well, I'm sorry, that's a misnamed slide. We're going to talk a little bit about constructors, and we're going to be using loops, and we're going to build on this more tomorrow when we get into the functional programming. So we're going to do some things here just the manual way, which tomorrow we'll sort of apply some functional approaches using the underscore library. But the first thing I want to talk about is the idea of a function as a constructor. And as we see, we have this function called animal maker on the screen. We have a capital A to let other programmers know that this is a constructor. And what a constructor is, at its core, is a function that returns an object. That's it. So we see here, we have our animal maker. It's just returning a function. I'm sorry, it's returning an object. And what does this object, what properties does this object contain? Speak. Yeah, so speak. And it's a function that just console logs the name of the animal. True? So then if we wanted to, create an animal object, so var my animal, oops, equals, just a second, to put our function in there, so var my animal equals animal maker, and then we could pass it a name. Who has a pet that they love? What's its name?
Cheetah.
Cheetah? Cheetah or Cheeto?
Cheetah.
Cheetah. Okay, like
she
that?
Looks like a cheetah.
Oh, cool. It's a kitty. Is that how you spelled cheetah? Yeah, okay. So now we just used our constructor function to create our animal object. And here we are. And then if we wanted to then, if we then wanted our animal to speak, how do we go about doing that? Yeah, we could use a dot. And then what? Yeah, good job. Dot speak, like that. And what's this going to return?
Function.
Oh no, there is a return, isn't there?
What's going to happen?
Don't we have to put the parens in there?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we don't put the parentheses, we just get a function. And that's not really what we expected, right? We wanted to do what we expected to do, which is the console.log my name is name speak. And so it says my name is Cheetah. Cool? So that's the essence of a constructor function, is that we're taking some information and we're turning it into an object that we then have, and then we have a model of our data that we can use in some way. And notice the rules again, they don't change. The ways that we access our methods are the same. We can use dot notation. We can also use our bracket notation. Like this, guys. Like this. What am I missing? Quotes, exactly. There we are. So and then I was talking with a student the other day about.
So I'm sorry, in bracket notation you had the invocation also?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
That's important. Mm-hmm. So so I was talking with someone the other day about when you inspect the inside of a function here, we don't actually, it's not saying cheetah, it's saying name. We got into a discussion about why doesn't it just say cheetah if it's going to be cheetah? And the answer is that before you call a function, your parameters don't have a value, remember? And so even though we know that it's going to be cheetah, that variable gets its value dynamically when you call the function. And so that's something to note when you're going through your code. Cool, so we have our animal maker, it's returning an object, has speak. Like we can even put like a name function on it if we wanted to, just so like we can remember who's who. Say name is name, and then we can like I don't know, owner maybe. So what if we wanted to loop through these animal names and create an animal object with each one? How do we go about doing that? Actually, I'll give you a moment. I'll give you like 5 minutes to try this out on your own. So what we're going to do is we're going to loop through. For each name, we are going to pass it to Animal Maker and create an animal object. Cool. Let me know when you guys have done that. And then to the question about the console log with the plus sign. So you can use the plus sign if you want. What it does though to this variable is that it forces it into a string. So if name was an object, that would run into some problems, because if you stringify an object, it's like saying this, string plus some object. It's going to quote object object, and when you're console logging, maybe that's not going to enlighten you the way that you need to. And if you want it to print out what it is, you can just use the comma. And it will just print out the object prettier. Oh, I forgot to mention that you want to add it to your farm. So you want your animal objects to be in your farm, which is just an array. So when you're looping through your array, you're creating your animal objects and then adding them to your farm array. All right, so what's the first thing I need to do? Guys, I have this like periodic amnesia that happens where I just forget everything I ever knew about JavaScript. So I'm gonna have to rely on you. I'm kind of in a high pressure situation, I'm on camera, so I need your help. Really desperately need your help. How do I make my farm? You guys are not the rescue type, huh? I'm here, I'm on the spot.
Sorry, what's the question?
So how are we gonna loop through this array?
For each.
All right, we're gonna make a for loop. For var. And should I do it this way?
Yep.
Yeah? Probably not, right? We kind of talked about that. This is for objects. So we want the I one, right? Animal names, dot length, right? I sometimes make mistakes, so let me know. Okay, so I wrote my for loop. So this loop is going to loop through all of my animal names. And now I want to create an animal object for each one.
All Animal Maker and pass in index.
Pass in the index.
Animal names by index. Taking some liberties with syntax.
Like that?
Bracket.
Bracket. And then what? So now we're creating the animal objects, but they're just going out in space. We want to add them to our farm. Otherwise, they're wild animals, and this would be the jungle.
Farm, square, bracket, I equals animal maker, or in front of that animal maker.
Oh, I see. Whoops. Is this going to work?
Yes. Oh, I see.
I think it'll work. It'll
Oh,
work.
yeah.
That's one way to do it. Awesome. So this is how we're going to create our farm. We're going to use our constructor function. We're going to loop through our animal names, and we're coming up with these robust animal objects that have methods on them. So all of our animals in our farm can now speak. And if we later wanted to change our constructor function a little differently, we could maybe even add more. So here's an example of the answers of how we can do that. We could do farm.push. So the one that we did before was farm at I equals animal maker. And then the second, another way we can do it, we can just use the .push method where we say var animal equals, again, animal maker, animal names at I, and then we just push it, each one. Or we could just do it all in one line. So we could say farm.push, animal maker, parentheses, animal names, bracket I. Thumbs on how we got there? Thumbs, thumbs, thumbs. Thumbs in the front, thumbs in the front. Cool.
Is there a reason why you're not using new keyword to create the?
Because that would be, then I would have to explain this. I would have to explain keyword new. And at the end of the day, when you use the keyword new, all it's doing is returning an object. So at its core, like there's a bunch of different class patterns that you can use in JavaScript because we don't really have formal classes. So you can just write a function that returns an object, and there you are. You have a class or a constructor. And then there is a way using the keyword new. You can look it up. It's called pseudo-classical. That's the pattern, and that tends to be the typical pattern using the keyword new. You see this in there a lot, the dot prototype, etc. But that's like, I have another class on object-oriented JavaScript is a week long, so it's just like a whole nother animal, and I try not to introduce like too much extra stuff. But good question. Any other questions?
Kate's asking how the object is being created. She doesn't understand that.
Sure. So we're actually, so this return statement here, these curly brackets here are the object that's being created. So if we just copy this quickly into our console, let me make it a little bigger. And we just say var obj equals animal maker. So how this is working is that whatever this function is returning is then going to be stored in this variable. And so obj, since animal maker, when we know what animal maker is returning, if we go back up, we look into the function body, again the function body is between the curly brackets, and we look at that return statement, and that return statement is going to explicitly tell us what we're returning. And notice we have these curly brackets. It's a little bit confusing because there's a lot of curly brackets in there, but there's no function keyword, there's no if, there's no for, they're just naked curly brackets, and that tells us that that's an object literal. And so that return statement is just explicitly returning an object. So like if we, for example, went back here and we just deleted the speak function, which is adding some extra curly brackets, and we just looked at it like this, you can see that it's just returning an object, and that's where the object's coming from. So there's nothing fancy special here. It's just literally returning an object literal.
Can you console log something there? I can't understand what's in the array.
In the farm?
Yeah.
Sure. I don't know. So here we have our farm, which is an array of 3 objects. So for every animal name, we have an animal object for them that we had put into the farm. So if we look at the object, it's just an object that has a speak method on it. So each one will do that. And then, does that answer your question?
How do I get the names to actually show up?
Well, what we could do is we could change this to and then I think, let's see if it'll show it now. Yeah. So now you can see the actual name.
Okay, let me see what you did then.
All I did is I added another property on there called name, just so you could explicitly see the name. Before we just had a function in there. Cool. Awesome. So now, what if we wanted to then loop through our farm now and have all of our animals say their name? We're having like a farm roll call. How would we do that?
In the for loop, say animal speak.
So we want to loop through the farm, right? So it'd be a new for loop, right?
Yep.
I'm going to delete this old one. Is that okay? It's for room. Whoops. For var I equals 0, I is less than farm.length, I plus plus, done, 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 done. Okay. And then what do we have to do? What's the next step?
Farm, big square bracket I in the middle.
And then,
Speak, paren.
cool. Thumbs on where we're at. Can I see everyone's thumbs just so I can have a check? Thumbs, thumbs. Okay, cool. So let's test it out. Oh wait, let's just do this one. Cool.
Can you go back to that slide? Just on that function animal maker. That's where we're defining it. We don't need the var there or anything like that. I'm getting confused with the var.
Yeah, so that's the other. Remember I was saying there's two ways that you can name a function. This is the other way. This is the way I actually don't recommend, but because of slide real estate, I use them a lot in my slides. But in code, you should just use var x equals function. So you could say, I guess this one has more room. You could say var animal maker. Oops, not mater. So that's a different thing. Actually, maybe that's accurate. So it's more or less the same. It does have different implications as far as like hoisting and scope things, but for today we'll just go with it's the same. We talk about scope tomorrow, so we can talk about that.
Also stack tracing on yours too.